on a little fun fact. You don't have to give a fun fact. I'm being a dick, but no, just introduce yourself. Your name, what you want to get into, and we'll get it cracking, man.
Yeah, a little icebreaker.
Yeah, there you go, a little icebreaker, like we're back in college.
That's right. Yeah, I'm Noah. I'm the little brother of Big D. I think that's what you call him.
Yeah,
Um,
Nick D and Big Nate. Yeah,
Big Nate. Yeah, I'm their
yeah,
brother.
yeah.
Uh, high demand from them to let me hop on this show. Been pretty excited about it, and I don't know. I'm just ready to get it started. And I don't think you've
There you
ever
go.
had like a Dodgers fan, or maybe I'm
Yeah,
mistaken.
actually, now that you mention it, I don't think we've ever had a. Yeah, I don't have to. Now that you mentioned it, I think you might be the first Dodger fan.
Perfect. We got our little
So
echo chamber then.
there you go. Yeah, now we can get some Dodgers propaganda on here at long last.
That's right.
I think it took about 120 something of these bad boys, but finally at long last we can get some Dodgers propaganda on here.
Of course, there's not enough out there, you know?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of hate. I know, especially because you mentioned your brothers. They're both Angels fans. And that's a whole disaster in and of itself. So, it's always good to get a man in the family with good taste when it comes to baseball teams to root for. So, it's another reason why it's a long time in the making.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I guess that's where we can start is
Yeah,
like
let's start with the Dodgers, man. I know you and I've talked a lot about the Dodgers, but there's a lot that we haven't gotten into because we've been wanting to probably save it for this occasion. So, without further ado, man, I kind of want to give the floor to you and see you want to take this bad boy and again spread some Dodgers propaganda. I'm excited, man. It feels good. I think it's 128, so it took about 127. So
uh well,
let's do it, man.
um yeah, so I mean, I grew up in a family full of Angels fans. I mean, baseball fans first, but first and foremost they were baseball fans, but um they all love the Angels for obvious reasons growing up in Orange County. And I mean, I know it seems like a long time ago, but back in the day, I mean, the Angels were um, kind of one of the marquee franchises. I mean, those Angel teams in the 2000s were, I mean, really, like I said, it's hard to believe now, but I mean, they were a very successful franchise, very competitive year in year out, um, and that's the kind of environment I grew up in. Um, so why didn't I become an Angels fan? Um, Firstly, I didn't like baseball growing up. I actually found it really boring. Like the classic criticisms, the game's too slow, we need a pitch clock, you know, um, everything that Rob Manfred, um, said that was, boring about the game. I kind of reinforced those ideas. Anytime I got dragged to a game, like 90% of the time it was an Angels game. Um, and I was completely miserable. Part of it was just me being, uh, what do you call it? My brother likes to say, oh, what's the word he uses? Contrarian.
There
um,
you go.
he loves, yeah, he loves to describe me that way. Um, but, since all my, uh, my whole family, I mean, not even like my immediate family, um, even beyond that, like my friends, um, uncles, grandpas, grandmas, you name it. They were all Angels propaganda all around me. And as someone that didn't like baseball, I um, clearly was not a fan of it. um, I, I mean, I like Torii Hunter. That's one thing, but other than that, like, uh, anytime I went to an Angels game, you best believe I'm rooting against them. And yeah, like I'll admit now, like it was just me being petty. To be fair, um, that's all it is. It's like a 5-year-old being petty, doing his thing. Um, so what I used to say was, I'm not an Angels fan. I'm actually a Dodgers fan. And was I an actual Dodgers fan? No, of course not. Like I could probably name like Matt Kemp, maybe like Kershaw, but that's about it. Like I just said Dodger. I was a Dodgers fan because I didn't want the label as an Angels fan. Um, Yeah.
I
um,
get you. I get you. You
that's
know, actually,
essentially
I
it.
don't think, I don't think I ever I don't think we ever actually talked about how you became a Dodgers fan. So this is very informative for me too, man.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, honestly, it came from pettiness, but as it goes, I mean, this is okay. So, like, sorry, it's time kind of like a frame of reference. This is around like 2008, 2009, where Angels very successful. Dodgers were getting into it as well. I mean, I can go in about the Manny Ramirez trade that happened in 2008. Um, Again, at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew, like, whenever I see the Dodgers on TV or anytime they were mentioned, um, I would be rooting for them. Very fake fan, of course. Um, but honestly, I didn't like baseball, so I didn't care. So whatever anyone had to say about me, like, is like whatever. But Angels were very successful. And even then, going to games, I never really found like a passion for it. Um, I can go on about Angel Stadium and my feelings towards it. But I'm guessing you probably know my feelings about Angel Stadium and just the environment. Um, Honestly, I don't feel like it's changed much. I know Artie Moreno likes to emphasize the safetiness and affordability. That's always been a thing at Angel Stadium, as far as I can remember. Um, Even then, when they were a competitive team, when they were making playoff runs, um, it felt very safe, which is good. I mean, if you want to bring out the family to an Angels game on a Saturday night, have something to do, then by all means go for it. It's just at the time that's not really what I was looking for. Um, and I'm gonna praise one of my least favorite teams right now, the San Diego Padres. I went to a Petco Park game in 2009, I believe, um, and the environment is just drastically different from anything I've experienced at Angel Stadium. I mean, it's beautiful there. The fandom is great. Even back then, when they weren't garnering much attendance, it's in the city. A lot of diehard fans, especially at that time. Like, I mean, the Padres were completely terrible for um, most of their history, and um, I mean, there was nothing like going to a game at Petco Park. I mean, it's beautiful. I've been there a few times recently. It's still beautiful. I went to a Dodgers Padres game. I love the energy from both sides, and honestly, it's an experience um, I mean, you get something really cool out of it, and you leave the stadium feeling like well, I say you, but I'm talking about me, I guess. I left it feeling like, wow, that was what an experience that was. Like, even if I wasn't a baseball fan, even if I wasn't a Dodgers fan or a Padres hater, like it was an experience that like was memorable. Um and sorry, I'm bashing the Angels a little too much, but Angel
No,
Stadium
we
just
can wrap it up, man. Let's keep it going, man. Let's beat the dead horse, and I mean, not even beat the dead horse. I mean, that's the wrong metaphor. What is it? Kick them while they're down a little bit. It's a trash
yeah.
franchise.
And
Yeah,
honestly, yeah, I mean,
yeah. Let's
I
go.
like how you
Yeah,
mentioned beat them while they're down because I mean this was a lot more fun to talk about in like 2014 when they were really good. Um, it was just a lot more fun to have that banter as well. Whereas now it's just like I mean they haven't been successful in the past decade plus, so it's just like I feel kind of bad just like bashing on them, but like I mean it's warranted. I mean they're fans, the tarps off in right field. Like no, I mean everyone's lost hope. Um, in whatever direction they're going. I mean, lack of direction, I must say. But yeah. Back to my train of thought was just environment. Orange County. I can go on about that as well. I know my brothers have heard enough of it, but I just don't feel like. I mean, a lot of people might disagree, but I don't feel like Orange County is just a sports city whatsoever. Um, Anaheim Ducks. I know they recently made the playoffs, went to the second round, um, and I mean I know the atmosphere was electric there, and I'm not trying to bash on them whatsoever. Um, but I feel like part of it is just of that. And again, I'm not a hockey fan whatsoever, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass here. But I mean, I feel like part of that may be because Orange County, it hasn't had a successful team since, like, I mean, I think the Ducks last time was 2017, 2018. So I mean, that's a big momentous occasion of finally making the playoffs when you're so deprived. Um, but again, I'm not gonna bash on the Ducks because honestly, I don't know. But Angels, on the other hand, um, yeah, it's just. I mean, I'll even compare it to the first time I went to a Dodgers game. This was around like 2008 as well. Same thing with the Padres. Same thing. Um, it's not directly downtown, but I mean, you see the skyline right behind home plate. If you ever go in the upper deck, it's a beautiful view. Just the again, I'm gonna I'm gonna stress it so many times. Just the environment, the passion, um, and I know. I mean, some people bash on Dodgers fans for leaving in the seventh inning, which I mean, you never see me doing that. I've seen people do it, which is disappointing. Um, but I mean, if you've ever been to Dodger Stadium, you understand the traffic scenario. Um, but I mean, yeah, a
No, I'm
lot of
with you, man.
yeah, a lot of people bash on Dodgers fans for being fair weather, casual, and yeah, you're gonna have some of those. Especially in recent memory with Otani signing with the team. It's a very, let's just say, Otani made baseball very popular, or I guess Dodger baseball very popular within a certain demographic. Um, some that may not really care about the actual game or the actual like success of the team. They just want to see Otani play. And a lot of people may reference them as casuals or fair weather, as I say. But I mean, again, going to Dodgers don't go to a Dodgers game this year. Um, it's really a beautiful experience. And honestly, I could say that about like any team I've ever witnessed. Um, I love Oracle Park as well. I mean, T-Mobile Park. Um, I've been to Coors. I have no memory of it, but I've heard amazing things about it. And even the big Tropicana Field, I have visited, and it's been a while, so maybe I have the rose tinted glasses on, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It was different. It felt, I mean, it was a dome. It felt like a basketball game in a way. Um, but I don't know. I just felt like, I mean, there was nothing really special about it, but um, yeah, it just felt like a great baseball experience. And um, yeah, uh, that's kind of that's
No,
kind
I'm
of
with you,
my
man. I think
yeah.
when it comes to any sport, really, I think atmosphere and environment, like you mentioned, play such a key part in that experience. And you mentioned the fair weatherness of it, where I think what makes a great sporting event, whether you're in person or you're watching it on TV, is when you can hear the noise and the passion and people getting into it. There's nothing that sucks the life out of a game when the crowd's not into it, and it's like watching a bunch of people in a library. Or people who are just happy to be there, or not even happy to be there. They've just got tickets, and um, I think part of what makes a great sporting event is when you have those diehard fans that are making noise and they're there from the first pitch of the game to the last out. And yeah, you mentioned, with the Dodgers. I mean, I think every team, and I mean, I'd argue in at least every North American sport, every team has some element of fair weather bandwagon, or people who are just there because they can afford it, or because they got nothing better to do, or whatever it is, or family outing, whatever. But uh, you know, I think you said a great, with the Padres, obviously as Dodgers fans, I mean, they're not, obviously our favorite team necessarily, but I got to give credit where it's due. It's a beautiful ballpark, like you mentioned. It's right in the heart of downtown, gas lamp area. I mean, you can't ask for many better places to go watch a baseball game. Sadly, I've never been to any of those other ballparks you mentioned. I've never been to a Giants game, never been to a Rockies game. Never been to a Mariners game, anything like that, but that's all on the bucket list. Um, but you mentioned the Angels, and I think you mentioned Artie Moreno, and the safety and the affordability. I think the argument I've always had is why can't you have both? Why can't it be safe, affordable, and the team is competitive? That's really so you don't want to kick them while they're down. But yeah, I think to be honest, there is a part of me that feels bad for the Angels. I know obviously both of your brothers are Angels fans. We know a lot of other Angels fans. Some of whom who have been on here, in the past, and I always. It might sound weird. People might say, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But I do want the Angels to be good. To be honest with you, I think the sport is better, especially because in Southern California and Orange County, I think there's a lot more juice. It's the same thing with the Padres and the Giants. When those teams are good, it makes it more enjoyable because you still want to beat them, but if you feel sorry for them because they suck, it's not as enjoyable when you beat them. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, for sure. That's what I was
So,
saying with like, um, I kind of miss when they were good, so I just have the banter with with my brothers again. I
yeah,
have the banter with my friends, whereas now it's just like, I mean, all I hear is salary cap, and
no,
it's just not fun anymore. It's just like, okay, well,
no,
what
I
are we
get
doing?
it. I feel that. I really do. That's actually funny. Your oldest brother, the homie Nick D. Um, I'll never forget when him and I were. I think, fuck man, what was the year that Josh Donaldson won MVP? Was it
That was
2014?
2015, 2015
2015.
or
Thank you. 2015.
yeah, 2015. Yeah,
I think it was 15. Yeah. So I want to say we were. I think we were juniors in high school in 2015, if my math is right. But I'll know, the year that Donaldson won MVP. I remember your brother and I. High school. Obviously, I've changed a lot and evolved a lot. But back in the day, I used to love those like sports debates. Now I don't really like to debate. I just like to, we like to chop it up. We like to have fun. We like to, we like to make sarcastic jokes and kick them while they're down and all that too. But like you mentioned, when the Angels, they were still decent back in 2015. It feels like, like you said, it was hard to believe because it's been such a long time. But about a decade ago, they were making the playoffs still. You had Mike Trout who was winning MVPs and was in the conversation as not only the best player in the sport but one of the best players in the history of the sport. And I remember your brother and I had this big debate about who should win the MVP that year between Josh Donaldson and Mike Trout, and it ended up being Josh Donaldson. Your brother was probably right in many ways. I mean, obviously Trout was the better player and whatnot, but I believe Donaldson should have been the MVP at that time, and he ended up winning it. But I guess what you're saying is like that banter, that having that ability to have that conversation, and give each other a hard time, but you can still it's all love at the end of the day. Um, it's one of those things where when they're ass and there's nothing going on, what do you look forward to? I mean, there's nothing to talk about with the Angels. Like you said, it's just, at that point, it's just a salary cap thing where, people are saying, should we, what is baseball going to do? Give me, no. But, yeah, with the Angels, man, it's one of those things where, I think yearning for the days where they're a competitive baseball team, and I know they recently fired our guy Perry, Big Perry over there. John Mozeliak, who used to be with the Cardinals. I think he's the interim GM. He ran the draft for them as well a couple of weeks ago. So I'm interested to see what kind of direction they can take the franchise moving forward. Um,
I want to
just
see them
because.
take any direction is what I want to see.
Um, it's one of those things where the sport is better when I think what people don't realize sometimes is that somebody has to finish in last place in any sport. It's impossible. Only one team can win. Somebody's going to have to finish in last place. So obviously, you're going to have bad years. You're going to have a couple of down years. You're going to rebuild all of that stuff. But like you mentioned, you want to see a direction. You want to see a plan. Um, and most of all, you want to see teams trying to be competitive. And I think nowadays, especially in baseball, which is the big thing with the looming CBA negotiations that are it's a big cloud over the season because there's a lot of uncertainty of where it's going to go, and a lot of that is because there's like you mentioned, there's the salary cap debate which ties into the Dodgers and spurred some Dodgers propaganda because I think a lot of people think that the Dodgers are the bad guy, and the Dodgers are we should I think people make it more about the Dodgers. They don't have that same level of critique and energy for the Angels, the Rockies, where there is no plan. They're just happy to take their ticket and parking revenue and concessions and all that jazz and broadcasting and advertising and sponsorships and like Artie Moreno in the offseason said the quiet part out loud, and he was basically saying, yeah, if you ask Angels fans, winning's not in their top 5 priority. They want to go to an affordable game. And it's like, well, who the hell said that?
We still don't know who said that.
Yeah, that's a made-up poll, man. They're making up, just pulling shit out of that. So it all goes into propaganda, man. That's all. That's the theme of it all, man. Like, so I think there's a lot of critiques about the Dodgers, and I think you can speak to this probably even better than I can, where what a lot of people don't talk about is like, look, you want to implement some form of a salary cap. Who's to say that those teams aren't still going to suck ass anyways because they just don't, you know what I mean? Like, and what people don't realize, even with the Dodgers especially, is that yeah, people look at the deferred money and the big contracts, and yeah, that's true. They spend more than anybody else by a far and wide margin. Uh, you know, but let's not beat around the bush here and say that that's the only reason for their success. I know off the record earlier when we were, coordinating the time to fire this up. One of the things that, you had mentioned was Max Muncy bobblehead night is coming up in about 2 weeks' time, and he's a perfect example of a guy who they picked him up. He was waived, DFA'd, whatever you want to call it, cut, pick your favorite word, and the Dodgers just picked them up. They took a chance. Justin Turner back in the day,
Yeah. Chris Taylor.
Chris Taylor. I mean, so many different examples. And then homegrown talent players that they've drafted. You look at a guy like, Will Smith, or you go down the line. I mean, shit. Right now, they've got one of, if not the best farm systems in all of baseball. And so people get mad at the Dodgers because of the big contracts and the deferred money and whatnot. And I get it, but what they don't look at is that, okay, you implement a salary cap and the Dodgers are still going to be competitive every year because because they have the investments in, it all, look at the front office, Andrew Friedman. I always like to say with the Dodgers, man, they're the Rays front office with Los Angeles Dodgers finances. But
Yeah.
if you limit the finances, they're still going to find a way to be competitive because they're constantly finding ways to add players on the margins as well. They draft and develop. They sign guys, from international, Dominican Republic and all the other different countries. And I mean, that's their farm system right now. You look at their top prospects, and it's a bunch of guys who, in many ways, are probably big league ready or close to it. There's just not enough spots on the big league team for them to play.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Ward is someone I want to see play, but it's just
Yeah.
like, where's he going to play?
Yeah.
I mean,
Ryan Ward's one of those guys who, I mean, he's got nothing left to prove in AAA. I know a lot of people like to use they're all, there's certain players that they call them quadruple A players, where it's like they're too good for triple A in the minor leagues, but they're not good enough for the majors. But Ryan Ward's one of those interesting cases where it's not even that he's not good enough for the majors; he just hasn't really gotten the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think the best example you can probably mention is someone I really was looking forward to being a regular in Dodger Blue, Michael Bush. I mean, we've seen what he's done with the Cubs. He's been amazing. So, I mean, but we had to give him, or we didn't have to, but we just gave him away because there was just no room for him.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but I mean, like I said, I was really hoping he'd be like my next Corey Seager or Cody Bellinger. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Even shout out Jock Peterson, man. I remember when
yeah,
Jock Peterson was in the minor leagues. I mentioned when I was in high school. I think the same year that your brother and I were debating about Donaldson and Trout. I remember one of my teachers, I think in high school, was high school is not really. I don't know how your high school experience was, but it wasn't the greatest, obviously. And then it's not really. I don't think about it too much, but you're unlocking a couple of memories I forgot that I had. And I remember it was my English teacher, I think my junior year of high school, and he was a big sports guy, and he was a Dodgers fan. So he was one of the only teachers I really, I think we kind of got along a little bit because of that. And I remember him and I used to talk about. I used to tell him, I was like, "Hey man, this Jock Peterson guy in the minor leagues, like, can't wait for him to come up, to the big leagues and whatnot. He's killing it in the minor leagues." And I think he looked at me like I was insane, but like you said, it's one of those things where, like you mentioned, part of the great part about baseball is, it's the one professional sport in North America where, um, it's the where there's a legitimate minor leagues.
yep,
And that's another thing with the looming lockout. I mean, that's probably a whole separate episode, to be honest with you, which it actually is. But I mean, we could even there's nothing in the rule books because we can't talk about it multiple times. But that's a big part of the looming lockout negotiations. CBA negotiations and whatnot is um, you know. In the last round of CBA, 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, when COVID happened, they used that as a way to kind of gut the draft and cut, they used COVID as a way to cut about 20, 30 rounds of the draft. And they got rid of a bunch of minor league teams. And in these next wave of negotiations, there's not a doubt in my mind that the owners are going to want to go in and completely nuke the minor leagues if they have the ability to, which would be a damn shame if that were to be the case. And that's why I think it deserves its own. It's something that should be talked about a lot, in my opinion, because you know, uh, that, I mean, it's such a big part of your organizational success is being able to build up a farm system. I mean, we mentioned the Rays and the Brewers and all those teams. I mean, part of the, on the flip side of that coin, yeah, they don't spend as much money, but they invest their money in other places beyond payroll where, they constantly are producing top level minor league talent. That talent comes up to the big leagues. And then, yeah, they don't pay them to keep them, but they find a way to replenish the pipeline.
yeah,
I mean, shit, you look at Milwaukee. I mean, they've called up like a couple of guys just in the last couple of months that, I mean, shit, I think they were all playing the same position in the minor leagues, and now they got them playing different positions because they didn't have enough spots for them to be able to play otherwise. And that's a testament to their organizational development. So yeah, I think people want to make it about a salary cap and the Dodgers are the bad guy and all that stuff. But in reality, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But yeah, the Dodgers, they spend a lot of money, and it's easy to hate the Dodgers because it's Los Angeles. People think it's like Hollywood glitz and glamour and the bullshit. Like I mean, shit, I hate celebrities and all that shit. But I love the Dodgers. So maybe I don't hate celebrities, but you know what I mean.
no,
Like,
yeah, I guess you're meaning.
you get what I mean. Like, that's not the reason why I like the Dodgers. I don't like the Dodgers because yeah, Hollywood's favorite actors or whatever. I could give a stuff, but it's like it's one of those things where I think we focus on trying to fix the wrong issues, and
Yeah,
then in and then we ignore the things that actually need to be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. I think you said it perfectly. I think just there's so many unseen things about the game that just don't make the headlines because they're not the easy thing to see. They're not the easy answer. Whereas, Dodgers spend what, like 60 million on Kyle Tucker. Everyone's gonna understand that. Everyone's gonna jump on that. Um, Whereas, teams like the Brewers, I mean, like you said, they don't seem to go away. Like it seems like every year I feel like they're just gonna regress and it never happens. And that's because, um, by doing your research, by going into the weeds of it instead of just like looking at the big contracts, the big names. I mean, the Brewers, I mean, besides not being able to retain the players because they don't spend the money, um, I mean, they're a beautifully run organization. Same with the Rays. Um, yeah, there's just so many just unseen aspects about this game that it's just hard to report on, to talk about, to banter about. That it's just like, I mean, the easy answer is this team has won 2 World Series in a row, and look at their payroll. And it's just the correlation between that, and that's how you get the we need a salary cap now. Um, when I mean, there's one thing that I mean, at least this is my mentality about it is you can spend all the money you want, but you will not be a consistently great club unless you do more than that. I mean, uh, again, beating a dead horse. I mean, you look at the Mets. I mean, they're a very poorly run organization, and it seems like all they do is spend money. And I mean, you see where they are, you've seen where they've been. Even when they have a year or two where they're, I think a few years ago they won 100 games, and then like in 2024 they won about 90. But other than that, it's like they can't seem to sustain anything, and that's because they don't. They don't I mean, they just focus way too much on the big picture. The let's sign the 800 million Juan Soto. Let's sign Jorge Polanco. Let's sign this guy. Let's sign this guy, and let's hope something works. When that's just um, dumbing down the game so much, where it's just like that's not. I mean, if you've ever been part of a team or a baseball team or any team in general, like there's more to the game than just spending money, signing players, and um,
Exactly. You have to spend the money smartly.
exactly. I mean, and even the Angels, I mean, they haven't been spending money recently, but I mean, we can look at Pujols. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's there's a bunch of players. I mean, there's Justin Upton, even like people or names people have forgotten, like Zach Cozart. I still remember that. Brandon Jury, even still recently, like Jorge Soler, Hunter Renfro. Like these are good ball players, but like you need more than this. Like signing players like this is not gonna just you know completely do a 180 on your team. Um, I mean, there's countless others like Yohan Moncada. Um, I don't think
Yeah.
I've
Josh
mentioned
Hamilton back in the day.
Hamilton. I mean, I know there's the big one, Rendon, which
Oh yeah.
I mean, a little unfortunate, but I mean, in essence, it's still the same idea. Is like you can sign all these players, but I
Yeah.
mean, the Angels have
But
been
that also kind of
notoriously
goes into the Artie
yeah.
Moreno thing, right? Where it's like, okay, we
Mhm.
want to just get like like with the Angels, I guess the frustrating part with the Angels is not the fact that like they've spent the money in the past, but they don't spend it smartly, like you mentioned. Where if you like, if you take the money that they would like, let's go to Rendon or Pujols or whatever it is, like, if you take the money that you would have committed to that one player and then divvy that money up to two or three or four players instead and build well balanced ball club, it's a lot different.
Exactly, or
You
just
know,
allocate it towards development. I mean,
yeah, put it into the minor leagues, put it into your front office, your scouting department. Uh, you know, go out and hire a guy like yourself, man. Put him in the front off. Give him a chance. Like, instead of just cycling through the same people and just a bunch of yes men. Like, go get people who live and breathe the sport, who actually they actually know more than they probably get credit for. Like, I think sometimes people think like, oh, these, they're just fans. It's like, no, not a fan. Fuck a fan. No, it's like, it's a livelihood. Like, I can't speak on anybody else's behalf other than my own, but like, I don't look at myself as a fan. I look at, it's like a profession that just doesn't pay.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, that's kind of the way that I like to look at it. So it's like, you do the sport a disservice when you're putting the money in the wrong place. Like even the Mets, like you mentioned, they went out and they hired David Stearns from the Brewers. The Brewers are better than ever, and David Stearns, might not be fully on a hot seat, but um, that hasn't maybe gone according to plan of how, when the Mets hired David Stearns, I remember a lot of people were trying to make it seem like, oh, this is the East Coast version of Andrew Friedman to the Dodgers. And that's like, no, let's relax a little bit. But, on the subject of the Mets, I will say they do have a couple of nice young players that they've brought up through the minor leagues, and those have ironically been their bright spots. It's been the guys that they've developed, you mentioned the Jorge Polancos, and they went out and they got Freddie Peralta from the Brewers, ironically, and fastball Freddie even said yesterday, yeah, I'm sorry it didn't work out. I'm going to get traded. He knows he's getting traded. He knew that yesterday was his last start. And so you mentioned a team like the Brewers. Yeah, they might not spend to retain players, but I also do give them credit in a certain aspect because they know when to move on from certain players and they know when to cash in their chips. They know, I hate to use the talking about players like they're like a stock market investment or something like that. But it really sometimes just comes down to in sports, you have to know when to flip guys. Like I always think with the Angels, my most passionate conversation about the Angels is that if they were a serious franchise and they wanted to win, they many years ago, obviously you never want to trade away Mike Trout for no reason, but I think you would have had the ability to get a generational haul back in the day and to be able to replenish a farm system that they've really never have had. And the entire time that I've watched the sport of baseball, they've never had a top tier farm system. Not to say that they haven't had players come up through their minor league system, but they've never had a what I would consider to be a top 5 or a top 10 or even a top 15 farm system. It's always just been they've got a couple of guys that kind of fly under the radar, and they maybe get lost in the shuffle because their farm system's not that great, but they don't have the organizational depth in the minor leagues that a team like the Dodgers or the Brewers or the Rays. Shit, even a team like the Mariners. The Mariners got a great farm system. Um, and then you mentioned the Padres, AJ Preller. For all of the critiques that you can make about them, one of the things the Padres are on the other side of that coin, where they always tend to have great prospects, and then they trade those prospects, and those prospects end up doing amazing things in other organizations, and you think, man, these dumbasses keep getting rid of these guys, but then they keep finding new guys, and then it's up to them to keep trading them or not. But like I always go back in the day when they drafted Trey Turner out of NC State. Him and Carlos Rodon were teammates back in the day at North Carolina State. And Trey Turner got drafted by the Padres. They ended up flipping him not even a full year after they drafted him. Look how that turned out. The Juan Soto trade, you get rid of C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, all those guys.
There's
And shit,
countless.
even last year with Mason Miller, dude, they gave up a guy in Leo DeVries who, maybe a lot of people who might not follow the minor leagues like that dude's gonna be fucking incredible. And he'll be called up right in and around when the A's go out to Las Vegas, and that dude's gonna be a great big league. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee, obviously, but I mean that guy's got all the talent in the world, and to give up a guy like that, obviously Mason Miller was incredible too, but I mean, if you're the A's, you take that trade a million times out of 10. So I guess the point is that what you do with the prospects is up to each organization. Like the Padres, they flip them, and then they keep replenishing the pipeline and they trade them away and they keep doing the same thing. And then, even a guy like Jerry DiPoto and the Mariners, they always have a good farm system. Sometimes they'll trade some of those guys away. Sometimes they'll call them up. But there's so much importance in the minor leagues and actually developing players and being able to sign guys internationally, draft domestic talent, whether it's high school guys, college guys, and then we mentioned earlier with the Dodgers being able to find guys on the margins, players who, maybe don't have the track record, but you think, well, man. Um, maybe we get them in our organization and we can make a couple of tweaks. So we identify a trait or something that we like, whether it's, it's an analytical thing or maybe it's just a feel thing. Each organization is different. But, like you said, it's a lot different when you're doing that versus, oh, we're just going to sign a guy because it's a well known name and people who know those names are going to come to the ballpark to watch those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Even you mentioned Kyle Tucker. Dude, Kyle Tucker was hitting seventh the other day. Like, he hasn't really even.
Kyle, I mean, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about payroll? I mean, that guy's taking a good chunk of it, and I mean, he's a .8 WAR player. Like, he's not, he's not all that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
they
been
knew
his
they were
worst. It's been the
overpaying him
worst
as
season of
well.
his big league career. Yeah, he hasn't really
Yep.
done a whole lot.
But that wasn't like our season wasn't contingent on him. Like, we
No.
got, of course, a lot of other guys we signed, but also a lot of other guys that even haven't even made the majors yet, or again, even people like Eric Lauer. I mean, I love what he's done this year. And it seems like there's always someone like him every year. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember Tyler Anderson in 2022. Like, I was a big Tyler Anderson guy, and we finally, broke out with the Dodgers. I loved it, and I hated it when he got pulled out of that game that eventually eliminated us from the playoffs. Because I don't know, I love the feel good stories of these guys who just get overlooked that the Dodgers don't overlook, and that's what I really love about this organization is, yeah, I mean, we spend big, there's no denying that, but we also have an eye for our talent, just like,
Exactly. And that's why it's so frustrating because, like you said, it's and that's why I know it sounds like talking about beating a dead horse. I know I know I'm guilty of it. Of course. I mean, I talk about propaganda all the time, and sometimes it just sounds like I'm being facetious or like just being annoying or something like that. But it stems from a legitimate. I almost want to call it anger, to be honest with you, because it's frustrating. Where there's a we've got these big platforms and these big networks that I mean, dude. I mean, there's no denying. Like anytime you see like, oh, sources tell us this. Like, who do you think the sources are? Like, so or like with media coverage that like it's so easy to just have a lazy narrative because it's like your brother your oldest brother one of the things him and I talk about a lot is the is media coverage, and one of the things that I know frustrates him and it frustrates me is like, yeah, look, I get it. People like superstars, people like all that shit. I get it. Maybe like you mentioned, contrarian. I've always, I probably, and I wouldn't maybe. I'm sure, yeah. Look, contrarian is definitely part of it, but I think it's also just it's a legitimate feeling. Like I think where like you mentioned, people want to get lost in the glitz and the glamour, but it takes so much in order to build an actual team beyond names. You need so many. There's so much that goes into a winning team and a winning organization that goes beyond the big names. You have to have all of these different pieces, and you have to be able to mesh them together. It's a skill. And with the media coverage of it, it's a lot of lazy stuff, man. It's a lot of lazy narratives, like you mentioned, and then, a lot of the media coverage is kind of catered towards the fair weather fan or towards someone who doesn't even care for baseball. Like, a lot of these incoming conversations with the lockout, a lot of these are geared towards getting people to watch a sport that they don't even care for and will never watch in the first place. And what it does is it screws over the people that live and breathe and die the sport. And that's what kind of angers me and frustrates me a lot. Is like you mentioned with the Dodgers, Eric Lauer. This guy was, you know, uh, I mean, at the time, it was such an obvious thing. Like, oh, they picked up Eric Lauer from the Blue Jays, and this guy's going to come in and be great. And that's exactly what happened. And you know, so many people will not talk about that, and they'll just look at Otani and Yamamoto and all those guys. But it's like, what about the Eric Lauers and the Justin Robleskis of the world? Like those guys are as equal of a part of their success as those other guys.
And I would argue, if not, they're more.
Yeah, if not more. We talked about Kyle Tucker. I mean, Andy Pajas has been 10 times better than Kyle Tucker this season, but you won't hear anybody talk about that because Andy Pajas is not making as much as those guys. And that's another example of a guy who kind of came up, and I mean, shit, even a guy like Dalton Rushing. If it wasn't for Will Smith, I mean, dude, Dalton Rushing would be a everyday starting catcher on 90% of the other teams in the big leagues. It just so happens that he got drafted by the Dodgers at a time when they already had Will Smith. So it's like, sometimes, like you mentioned, people look at the payroll and they look at what they hear on social media or on TV or whatever it may be. And I get that a lot of people don't have the time to dig through the weeds, but that's where I feel like maybe in a way that doesn't come off narcissistically, but I feel like that's kind of where we come in. It's like, we want to have those conversations where it's like sometimes the truth is right there, but it's just a matter of sometimes people just don't know because maybe they don't have the time. Or, I get it. Some people don't have the time to dive into the minor leagues and be like, oh, that guy's a good prospect. I get it. Some people don't have the time for that, so I don't want to bash that because I get it. But it goes beyond that where it's like people keep talking about, like you said, the salary cap, like that's going to fix all the problems. All it's going to do is maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, maybe it gets implemented, maybe it doesn't. I mean, these are hypotheticals, but I think instead of a salary cap, what the sport really needs more than anything is a salary floor.
Yeah. I think the cap is just a band-aid fix to a more holistic problem within the league. I mean, it's just incompetence across many organizations. Not incompetence. I mean, they know what they're doing, very much so. And I mean, at the end of the day, the one goal is to just make money, which, I mean, can you blame them? So I mean, I wouldn't say incompetence. It's just, I think it's just fundamentally flawed. And yeah, you can make all these adjustments to, salary cap, salary floor, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change much of anything. The more successful teams will still be the more successful teams, while the teams in the gutter are going to stay in the gutter. Like, I mean, that's just
Yeah, and
what it
and,
is.
and and even if you implement a salary cap, okay, you have a salary cap, but you really think a team like I don't know, give me an example of a team you think is just hopeless and completely trash that we haven't talked about.
I mean, historically, I want to say the Pirates, but they've been really good this year. But man, I mean, Rockies.
Yeah, all right, Rockies is good. Like, the Rockies are not okay. You implement a salary cap. The Rockies aren't gonna magically start spending more money. Like, I will say what is fascinating to me with the Rockies. I will say they hired Paul DePodesta last offseason, and that's the guy from Moneyball, Peter Brand. Um, where he was with the Cleveland Browns for a while, and he came back to baseball, and he's one of the I guess you could say one of the original analytical minds back in the day, that kind of spearheaded a lot of that. And so I do want to see what a guy like that can do with the Rockies, because I think the Rockies have so much untapped potential, man. Like honestly, if I had the ability to be a general manager, like being a general manager of the Rockies would be super cool, man. Just to be able to, build a winner and find a way to be able to do that in that ballpark. funny enough, their general manager from way back when. I don't know. I don't know if you watch MLB Network a whole lot,
They
or
used to,
there's
but not much recently.
yeah, I don't really watch it as much either. But they covered a draft, and one of the guys they have on a draft every year is Dan O'Dowd. Dan O'Dowd used to be the general manager of the Rockies way back when, and Dan O'Dowd. One of the things I find super fascinating about what he said is he said his biggest regret when he was the general manager of the Rockies was pushing for the organization to implement the humidor that they have at Coors Field, where he was basically his argument at the time, I guess, and I guess looking back in hindsight, was they wanted to put the humidor in place so that way. I mean, obviously the ball still flies out of there, but it kind of, I don't want to say negates it, but it helps a little bit. And I think what his argument was of why he regrets it was that if he could go back in time, he would have tried to embrace the advantage that they have to its fullest extent. Like, instead of kind of neutering that advantage even a little bit, you want to play into it fully. So yeah, with the Rockies, I would even argue that, like, with the caveat where, okay, let's just say in a hypothetical universe, the the league goes in, the players, and they negotiate, and they end up implementing a salary cap, and then the Rockies become good. A lot of people might attribute that to a salary cap implementation and ignore the oversight of the fact that before they implemented a salary cap, they brought in a new general manager that they hadn't brought in at any point in their history that actually might be able to take them somewhere. So I think that's another part of that where you say it's like, you look on the surface, if we were to project 5 years from now, if that were to happen, that might be one of those same things where maybe if the Rockies become good in a couple of years and there's a salary cap, there'd be a lack of that digging through the weeds of that as well. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, yeah, the Pirates too. I mean, you mentioned historically, one of the prouder franchises, but their ownership, does not spend a whole lot. This is the first offseason they really kind of spent a little bit, and credit to them, it's paid off, and they've been playing really good baseball recently. I think you said it the other day off the record. It'd be great to get playoff baseball back there in Pittsburgh. That's a rocking atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. I still remember, I think it was 2013, or maybe it was 13 wild card with Cueto.
Oh
Who
yeah.
can forget?
Oh man, I think that, I mean, in any sport, I mean, that probably is up there and probably like top 5 or 10 of a crowd rattling a player like that. I mean, that was such a unique viewing experience. And shout out to Johnny Cueto too, man. A lot of people forget about him. I used to love watching him pitch too, but that I think was less about Cueto, and I think it was more just about how intense of an atmosphere that was, and the fact that they, I don't even have to close my eyes, and I can still hear the Cueto, Cueto, and that goes in the atmosphere, like you said. That's a big part of the sporting experience. So all these franchises, you want to get people to come watch games and be there. That's great. That's obviously the name of the game, their business. I get it, but sometimes what I think a lot of these organizations don't realize is that you can be competitive and get people in the building and make it affordable for them to be there. Um, so yeah, I think with baseball, man, there's a lot of positivity and there's a lot of things that are going in the right direction, but there are also some things that it's a little bit of a cloud hanging over it where there's a lot of uncertainty. So we'll see where it goes, man. But I'm glad that we get the chance to. I think maybe some people, if they've made it this far, at the beginning we were talking about Dodgers propaganda, but I think in many ways it goes even beyond the Dodgers. I think it's just about, I think we've given some love to some other teams. But while we're on the subject of, just of the season, first, obviously, first time you and I doing this on the record, have there been any things just as far as the season in general that have kind of stood out to you so far, and maybe some things you're looking forward to? And then I know the trade deadline's coming up next week as well. So anything maybe you're looking forward to with that?
As far as this season, honestly, I haven't been paying too much attention as much as other seasons, just because I've been pretty busy. But Of course, my Dodgers. No surprise there. Still kicking it. Um, as far as like surprises, I mean, like I said, I love. I mean, like what you said, I love what the Pirates are doing. You say like they spent a little bit this off season, but not only that is, I mean, you look at some of the people they called up. I mean, Nick Gonzalez has been doing great. Bubba Chandler, or was it? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Not Paul Skeens, the other starting pitcher that's doing really well.
Yeah, you got it.
Um, and yeah, just
Esmeralda Valdez too. Yeah, he's been really good.
yeah, I feel like that's a really complete lineup. And yeah, they like filled some holes by spending money, and I feel like that's what any team should do is kind of balance it in a way
Yeah,
without overspending, but not like completely
yeah,
relying on um, talent that may or may not show up. So
yeah. I mean, you mentioned the Angels, like a guy like Jorge Soler. Like Jorge Soler, it's not that Jorge Soler is a bad player. It's that Jorge Soler should be adding on. Like you mentioned with the Pirates, like look, they didn't spend a ton of money, but they spent more than they typically do. But they found the right pieces to be able to complement, like you mentioned, the guys that they were able to call up. So it's a mixture. So like with the Angels, it's not about Jorge Soler so much as it's a lack of players coming up to complement that, if that makes sense,
no,
where
of course, I mean it's a team game.
it's a team game. Exactly. So, if those guys that signed with the Pirates would have signed with the Angels, would they be having the same level of success? It's hard to tell. But part of the reason why the Pirates are having success is because they, even though they haven't spent a lot of money, they have developed their farm system over the last couple of years, and these guys are all coming up. Nick Gonzalez Nick Gonzalez hit like 450 in college, his last year of college. Like it was a slam dunk that they took him in, and he's a great hitter. Being able to again, a guy like Esmeralda Valdez, being able to sign him internationally. Paul Skeens obviously wasn't a rocket scientist pick. I think anybody could have made that one when they got the first overall pick. But like, you mentioned a guy like, Bubba Chandler. Like, you have to be able to draft the guys. Like, again, not to keep kicking the Angels down, but like last year, the Angels had the number 2 overall pick. They took Tyler Bremner, and Tyler Bremner is really good. He's a good player. But a lot of people will look at that and they'll look at the 2 guys that went immediately after him. Ironically, one of which is with the Pirates. Seth Hernandez, a local kid, Corona. I mean, I think his ERA last I checked is like I think it's under 1. And then Kate Anderson, who went 3 to the Mariners. So a lot of it really comes down to again being able to identify talent, drafting talent, signing guys, and then it's not necessarily just about spending money, but it's about spending the money smartly, like what the Pirates did. The guys that they got, Ryan O'Hearn, the Lowe brother. Being able to add those guys in, those were great complimentary signings.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, now that you mentioned, I know we've been talking about like money and signings all day, but like, I mean, if we're talking about salary cap, honestly, bring it on. So we don't make another signing like Kyle Tucker, because I mean, maybe it'll help us out at the end of the day. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it will. Maybe it will be a blessing in disguise. And then you know what? If anything, maybe they bring it on and the Dodgers still win, and then what'll the argument be then?
It'll be something else.
It'll be something else. Exactly. The goalposts will keep shaping and shifting to fit whatever narrative is out there. But yeah, I think without getting too far deep into the potential CBA negotiation, lockout, whatever. Like, I definitely think beyond that, I think more than anything, it's not always about being competitive. It's about if you're not competitive, are you building something? Like I always look back to the Astros. a decade ago. You know, they rebuilt. They had a couple of bad years. They got the
I mean, they
you know
had
you know
atrocious
they
years.
yeah, atrocious years. You know, and then they had you know, Jose Altuve in the minor leagues. I remember in middle school, you know, looking at Jose Altuve's stat line in the minor leagues. I mean, it felt like the guy was hitting like 400. I think it was. Obviously, it wasn't 400, but it might as well have been. I mean, it was hitting like 370 or some stupid shit like that. And I remember, you know, middle school Ryan being like, "Hey, this Jose Altuve guy. I mean, he hits everything." And then, you know, they had the number one overall pick, and you know, a lot of the media members back in the day. I remember when that draft was rolling around over a decade ago. They had the number one overall pick, and a lot of people thought that they were going to take Byron Buxton. They ended up signing, they, not signing, they ended up drafting Carlos Correa first overall. They signed him a little bit under slot, and then they drafted Lance McCullers, and they were able to take the money that they would have had on Buxton. They spent less, drafted Correa one, took the extra money, gave it to Lance McCullers, so that way Lance wouldn't go to college. You know, they drafted Bregman out of LSU. They had a couple of bad years. They got top draft picks, and then it all kind of meshed together. So even though they were bad, there was an organizational plan, like, okay, we suck, but we're building something.
Yeah.
And then, you know, ironically, Kyle Tucker came up with the Astros, like all those guys, like, and then, you know, the one that got away, Jordan Alvarez, former Dodger minor leaguer, like, um, you know, so I think sometimes it's not about being bad. It's about, are you building, uh, you know, so, you know, you look at some of these teams that might suck right now. Some of them suck and they have no future, but some of them suck right now. And then you look at their farm system and you look at some of the guys that they've added over the years, whether through the draft or, you know, international signings or through trades, and you say, hey, you know what? If things pan out, those guys will be good in a couple of years. Doesn't always pan out that way. You know, for every Astros, you get an Orioles. You know, the Orioles are disappointing to me. A couple of years ago, I thought they had as bright a future as anybody, and I was wrong. They're pretty much mediocre to ass at this point. You know, a lot of those guys didn't really pan out as well as I maybe thought they would, and you know, some of the guys that they maybe held on, they probably, in hindsight, you know, they held on to a couple of guys too long, and they maybe didn't call them up quickly enough, and they let them rot in the minor leagues too long, and you know, that sort of deal. So, you know, they didn't play their cards as well. Ironically, they brought in a couple of guys from the Astros organization to spearhead that, which was part of the reason why I was so high on them in the first place. Um, you know, but it goes to show you, man, there's so many different factors that go into building a winner. Like you said, it's not just about the stars and the payroll. There's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even within the Dodgers, I mean, we talked about, like, you know, the Tyler Andersons, the Eric Lauers, the Justin Robleskis, but I mean, there's frustration on my part within the organization, or not necessarily within like itself, but just like how when the Dodgers are talked about, it's, you know, all about the Otani, all about the Freeman, all about the Yamamoto, which I mean definitely warranted, but there's so much more to this team that, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
especially in recent, I mean, ever since really Otani got signed, it just kind of goes under the radar, which, I mean, it just sucks because I mean, of course, that's their golden child, as some say. And I mean, I'm not like the biggest fan of him. I love that he's on my team, but I mean, I would rather see other, like, I love seeing other people play. And
Oh yeah.
even I get like tired of seeing Otani on my home screen all the time. I mean, so like the frustration's here too. So I understand the frustration um with like any real baseball fan. Of course, like as a casual, I mean, you'll love to see Otani all the time. Um, but I mean, how much? Like, I mean, he's the best player we've ever seen. I understand that, but just I don't know.
No, I understand
Contrarian
that.
is the
Like
word of the day. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
I
I
get
just
that.
love I love just the players that go unrecognized. Um, because honestly, without them, Otani wouldn't have 2 rings. So
Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. Like, you said it perfectly. I honestly couldn't have said that any better. Um, like you mentioned, and I think part of the frustrating part is that it's not that it's not that you can't talk about, it's not that you can't talk about Otani. It's that you have to be able to. There's no reason why there is not enough room in the discourse to talk about all the different, like the bullpen's been incredible for years now. I mean, maybe there was one year where the bullpen wasn't that great, but bullpen's been rock solid this year. Like, you mentioned, yeah, it's definitely frustrating because I think you and I are similar in that aspect where we want to give love to some of the more, I don't want to say unknown or unheralded, but guys who don't get as much coverage, and I think that's also a part of it too, is where I think when we talk about casuals, I think sometimes we discredit how smart people are. So it's like if you dumb the game down and you make it just about the stars and Otani, even if someone's a casual, you'll never get them to expand that even further if you don't give them the opportunity to show them what it's like to talk about it the way that it's supposed to be talked about.
no, yeah, of course. And I think
So,
it just dumbs down the game to like, and it brings on the, false premise of, one player can change a team. I mean, very appropriately, we knew Otani couldn't do that with another team. So it's just like, I don't know, like going to like Dodgers games now. Like, I mean, obviously, I still love the environment. I still love the experience, but, I can't help but like, you know, I guess cringe whenever I see Otani come to the bat. And, that's when the everyone locks in. That's when everyone pulls out their phones. That's when when there's a routine fly ball, starts like cheering.
yeah,
I
everybody
mean,
starts screaming like it's going over the fence, but it's just a routine fly out to left field or something like that. I get it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, I think you and I might be the only two people that I know it would probably say that. But I think in many ways, yeah, I feel like it's nothing against Otani, but it's almost like in a certain way, I almost wish that they didn't have Otani in a certain way. Not that I'm not glad that he's on the Dodgers. Obviously, he's fucking incredible. Like you said, he's the best player, not only in the league. I mean, he's probably the best player to ever play the sport. I mean, if he's not, he's up there with he's up there, man. If he's not the best of all time, we don't need to get into that debate. But I mean, he's incredible. Like
yeah,
we don't have to go too far in the other pendulum direction and be like he sucks ass. But I get what you mean. Where, yeah, you wish that it wasn't like, oh, Tony's coming up, everybody, takes out their phone, and that's where you see all the casuals and stuff. Yeah, you want but that's just, I guess, part of the experience. I guess it's part of the love hate relationship that sports provides in many ways. But yeah, with the Dodgers, I always will root for the Dodgers, no matter who's on the team, no matter whether the highest payroll or the lowest payroll or somewhere in the middle, whether they're back to back champions or maybe one of these years they end up in a dip and they suck ass. You ride it through. You ride the wave as best you can, and uh, I just I wish for the best for the sport, and I feel like conversations uh, for the future of the sport need to be had in order to make sure that it doesn't go downwards and it only goes up.
of course not. And I mean, like you said, that sports as big as it's been in forever. I mean, since I've been alive, at least.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I just hope baseball doesn't stab itself in the back, or we as fans don't, or more than fans don't stab each other in the back by going on about all this like stuff that doesn't even need to be talked about. Um, and we just enjoy the game. We enjoy the beauty of it. But I mean, of course, I mean it's sports at the end of the day. It's a business, so there's always going to be some ugly. Um,
yeah. Unfortunately, that's part of it, but that's where I think you made a good point there. Where I think sometimes with the discourse is again, not to keep circling back to the same thing, but like with certain, in many ways, the way that media covers it is meant to pit the fans against each other, whereas it should be people uniting together to keep riding the momentum of the sport. Like you said, it's never been as successful in our lifetime, I'd say, as far as interest and attendance and viewership and all that. And you don't want to lose all of that. Like you said, it's a business, but sometimes when you get too greedy, you end up losing the very thing that is making you the money in the first place.
Yep. Yeah, well said.
Uh,
I don't know. It's just whatever gets the click. So
yeah, exactly, and that's a
uh,
shame because I just think that I never understood the narrative that like interesting, stimulating conversations don't generate clicks. I always hear that people don't have the attention span, people don't have the interest, and it's like, well, maybe they don't have the attention span or the interest because you keep telling them that they don't. Like
yeah, I
if you
never
keep
thought of it
telling
like that.
people, like if you keep talking on, TV, social media, your phone, like you keep saying like, oh yeah, people don't have interest in this, they believe it. But in reality, I think there is interest, or maybe if there isn't interest, you have to give people the opportunity to see if they're interested in it or not.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Um, and yeah,
give
when you
people the opportunity to talk about Justin Robleski, and then if they don't want to hear it and they don't, then they can go somewhere else. But um, I just think it's an important thing to if you want to grow the game, you got to grow. I always feel like there are better ways to grow it than the way that they do it. And obviously, they'll disagree with me because they'll point to the numbers and the statistics, and they'll say we're doing a great job. But you just don't want to. You don't want to go too far in one direction and fuck the whole thing up.
no, of course not.
But yeah, man. Any concluding thoughts here before we put a ball in this bad boy and set the stage for future conversations?
Um, yeah. So I just kind of like wanted to dive in just a little bit about like, I mean, I said I was like a Dodgers or a quote unquote Dodgers fan, back in the day when I really wasn't, but like I never really got into how I actually became a
Oh
Dodgers
yeah,
fan.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just a
yeah.
little
Full circle
story.
moment. Yeah, let's finish that. There you go.
Um, so it was 2013. I was still in my grunge era where I was just like, I hate baseball, I hate everything. Um, and I don't know why, but there was a Dodgers game on the TV in the living room, and my mom was just like explaining like context, and it was the Dodgers versus the Diamondbacks. I think Puig recently got called up and was doing his, 2013 like just crazy run that was unforeseen. Um, and she was just teaching me like, I mean, and me as a kid, I was like, okay, this is the team I've said that I'm a fan of. Let me show some interest. Let me learn about this. And I think pretty soon, or pretty soon right after, Zach Greinke gets hit by a Diamondbacks player, and the bench is clear, and they're in a huge brawl. I don't know if you remember this. Um, but yeah, that just kind of like sparked like an interest in me. Like, whoa, this is cool. Um, and picking a side for me was cool. Like, in a fight like that, and I wanted the Dodgers, obviously. I think they ended up winning that game. It was a close race in the NL West at the time. They ended up winning to win their first division title since 2009, and um, ever since that day, I just started to learn a little bit every day about Dodgers baseball, about baseball in general, and um, that's when I think I fell in love with the game. Was Zach Greinke getting hit in the head with a baseball? So um, I just kind of wanted to share that story, and I mean, ever since then, like I said, I've been following the Dodgers. I've been a diehard fan. My favorite team of all time. I don't think it will ever be topped. Was 2017 Dodgers. That team just was special. It's a shame what happened in the end, but um, I won't let that dampen my love for that team, and just just how fun it was to watch. I mean, even the ups and downs. I mean, they had like an 11-game losing streak that season, I remember. um, but it was probably the best team I've ever seen, and that's something that doesn't get talked about. Is those late 2000 or late 2010 Dodgers teams. I mean, at least in the regular season, record wise, are better than the teams we see now. So if
Oh
that
yeah,
says
people and
anything,
people. That's another part of the discourse is people talk too much about championships and they don't realize that it's not always about the championships. Like, you know, especially in a sport like baseball where it's such a in a small sample size in the playoffs, anything can happen. And those teams that you mentioned, 2017, like that team was incredible, and a lot of the teams that didn't win the World Series in many ways might have been even better than those teams that has gone back to back. It's just because they didn't win a championship, it doesn't get talked about in that same light. But that's kind of part of the discourse too that gets lost in the shuffle. Is when you make it about championship or bust, sometimes you forget about how great some of these teams are because the best team doesn't always win.
of course. And I mean, these Dodgers teams. I mean, if they weren't the best, they were near the best like every single year, and they just couldn't get the job done, which I mean was heartbreaking every October. It seems like we can never get over the hump until the COVID season, and then that got discredited because 60 games, and then once 2024 hit when we got Otani, and now the thing is, well, we did it because we had the most money. So I mean, yeah, there's always going to be movement of the goalpost. There's always going to be some sort of excuse, but the truth is, this team has been remarkable with the sustained success they've had um, since I mean, I want to say 2013, but even before 2013, like even in the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the old owner's name now.
Oh, the court.
McCoy, that guy, the one that bankrupted Dodgers. Like, I mean, there have been some low lows, but like this team has always been fun to watch. It's been successful 99% of the time, and it's just yeah, we won 2 championships the past 2 years, but I think it goes a lot more than that. And I mean, I've seen better teams than no, I mean, no disrespect to last year's team or 2024's team, but like that 2017 team, I think, in my opinion, is just the better team. But they didn't get the job done, and whether that
Yeah.
was because of cheating or whatever, it's just the best team doesn't always win. Um, so yeah, and just like I don't know, I'm just kind of like reminiscing on um,
Yeah. A
when
little
I
trip
was
down memory lane.
yeah, and even 2014, that was like the first full season um, that I was paying attention all throughout. When the Angels were the best team in MLB, I loved that just because it was fun to, uh, you know, have some banter with my friends, with my family, and both teams got eliminated in the DS that year, and we were all losers. But you know what? It was fun, and it was just I don't know. It was some sort of emotion that like you can't really replicate. It's just um, yeah, and it's something about sports that's just beautiful. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of ugly, but I mean, if you can find it, I mean,
There's a lot of beauty in there.
exactly. And um, I found a lot of beauty in loving the Dodgers, even before the Otani era, um, and all the glitz and glamour of that. I think there is just, I mean, I love Matt Kemp, I love Clayton Kershaw, um, even people like Zach Greinke, Adrian Gonzalez. Like these are people that I grew up watching, and like as fun these teams are now, it's like those people will always have a special place in my heart. And um, these are players that I want to talk about for the rest of my life, just because, um, yeah, they made me fall in love with the game. Even Puig,
Oh yeah.
with his antics, he changed the
Oh
game. I
man.
mean, I believe he changed the culture for better or for worse.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can make the argument that even though he technically never won a World Series with the Dodgers, they don't have the level of success that they do now. If it wasn't for him, man, uh, I will always have a special place in my heart for that dude. I used to love watching that guy. He was my favorite player. That guy was such a joy, man. You mentioned the 2013 team. I mean, yeah, all those years. 2013, 14. You mentioned 17. Like, so that's where it's maybe these last 2 years get more of the coverage, but those teams were the ones that, similar to you, I mean, made me fall in love with the Dodgers as well.
Yep.
And those are my most fondest memories. I think in many ways, I think it almost sounds strange to say, but I'll remember those teams more than the teams that went back to back.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think a lot of it is just because, um, again, like you said, like you kind of wish you didn't have Otani on your team, but like you're glad you have Otani on your team. It's just, I mean, I don't know. There's just something special about the teams that go a little under the radar, or just like the players that go under the radar, the ones that that you feel like you pay attention to, but maybe the general public doesn't know about. And even just growing up, watching these players, whereas now it's like we're getting up there, so it's like maybe there's not
Yeah,
as much magic. But I mean,
I get that. I
at the
really
same
do.
time, I mean, Game 7 of this World Series was the best game I've ever watched. So, um,
Yeah.
and that'll have another place in my heart.
Oh yeah,
Just
definitely.
a lot of fun memories with the Dodgers. Even with teams I hate like the Padres. I mean, 2022 was heartbreaking. I felt like it was like, how could you let this happen? I mean, you let the beast out of its cage, and luckily for us, they kind of never really done anything but after that. But I mean, they're still kind of there. Hopefully, there's some. I hope there's a good future for them, just because I love the rivalry. And a lot of Dodger fans say there's no rivalry. It's like, yeah, there is. I mean, you could say it's one sided, but there's there's a lot of passion between these two teams, and I love it. It's good.
Yeah, that's what makes sport fun, man. It's rivalry, it's competition, it's a respect for your opponent, and yeah, you want to beat the crap out of them, but you want them to be good because it makes the wins more enjoyable. When they're mediocre to ass, it's not as enjoyable. It's the same thing we were talking about the Angels. When the Dodgers and the Angels play, I feel sorry for the Angels when the Dodgers and the Angels play, because if it was last year, okay, the Angels won the season series, yip de doo. They still stink, and then this year the Dodgers ran through them, and it's like, well, it's
They went
because they
six and
stink.
0 last year.
You know,
That's baseball.
so that's baseball, like you said, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you with the Padres too, man. I mean, I honestly, I might come off the wrong way, but yeah, I like when the Padres are good. I like when the Giants are good. I like when the D-backs are good. I like when the Rockies are good. I like when there's competition, and obviously, again, somebody has to finish in last place, and maybe one of those teams is rebuilding, but you want to see that, okay, they're rebuilding with a plan. So it's like, okay,
They're
you know
last place for a reason, and they have somewhere to
exactly,
go.
like we were talking earlier, like, okay, yeah, they're in last place, but it's like, okay, I can see that in 2 or 3 years they're going to be really dangerous, so let's enjoy them being in last place now because they're going to be a problem.
Yep.
It's healthy for the sport. It's healthy. It's what makes sports great, is the rivalries, the competition. If it was just, let's just chalk it up and go down the line and the best team wins, then what would be the point, right?
Yeah, and especially in baseball, the best team almost never wins.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And that's what a lot of people, like you mentioned, those teams back in the day, even though they didn't win a World Series, they were they were still the best team. It's just the best team doesn't always win. And in a sport like baseball, where you play 162 regular season games, and you can attest to this, baseball is a very random sport. There's a lot of it's all about sample size. Like you could have in a 162 game season, like you said, you can go on like the Cubs this year, gone on a double digit win streak and a double digit losing streak. The Marlins went on a hot streak, and now they lost like 13, 12 in a row or something like that. I don't know if they won today or not, but it's one of those things where you could be at the plate. You're hitting 400 in your last 15 games, and the next 20 games you're hitting a buck 20.
yeah,
You can be on the mound and you have a 5 start stretch where your ERA is under 2, and then the next 5 starts you're getting battered around, and so in a sport like baseball, where I always think back to a couple of years ago when the Dodgers played the D-backs, when the D-backs made it to the World Series. Like, were the Diamondbacks the better team? No, of course not. But they were the hotter team in that small sample size, and they won.
Yeah, and that was just a pathetic showing from a Dodger team that won 100 games.
Yeah,
um,
and it was just because they had a couple of bad games, and if it would have been a best of 15, maybe the Dodgers pull through. But in a small sample size like that, um, it was just one of those things where momentum and all that plays a huge part in it, and it was pathetic showing. But you can make the argument too, if they don't get embarrassed like that against the D-backs, they don't go back to back either. So it was a blessing in disguise.
yeah, perhaps. And thanks, Lance Lynn, for that, I guess.
Yeah, wow, what a wow.
What a time.
What a time. Yeah, what a time to be alive that was. Wow. Wow.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a great trip down memory lane, man. We could do this all day. Um, but yeah, man, I can't thank you enough. Obviously, taking the time out of your night, to come on, make this happen. And, I know we're only just scratching the surface. I'm sure over the next many conversations that we'll have, we'll unlock memories that we haven't even gotten to today. And, uh, you know, expand those memories probably to some of those other teams as well throughout the big leagues. And I'm looking forward to it all, man.
Yeah, me too. I kind of forgot about it until now, but I really wanted to rant about the Chicago Cubs. Not like present tense, but past tense. Back in 2016, um, let's just say a lot of problems people have with the Dodgers, I had with the Cubs back then. So um,
Oh, that's interesting. I'm happy to hear that rant.
yeah, it's just publicity, and everyone jump in the 2016, the 108 years, 108-year drought, where I just felt like there's this Dodger team's pretty good, like, and of course they get eliminated by the Cubs, and I get heartbroken. But I mean, those Cubs teams, like, I just cannot stand. I cannot stand them, and that's where I kind of like feel empathy for people who can't stand the Dodgers. It's like, yeah, when you see so much of Dodgers, Dodgers, Dodgers on in the media, and it's just like, okay, well, these guys are annoying. I'm gonna just, I'm gonna hate them, and that's exactly what happened with me and the Cubs. Um, didn't really like, yeah. The only reason I really did hate them was just publicity. I wasn't a fan of how everyone just was just riding the riding the wave of. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It was a great thing, great series, but man, it was a lot of bitterness from my end, especially Corey Seager getting robbed from the 2015 or 2016 All Star game by Addison Russell of all people. That really grinded my gears. Yeah, sorry, I just had to
Oh
get
yeah.
that out of the way.
No, we could have a whole rant about the All Star game too, man.
Yeah, and
We
Zach
could probably
Greinke with Jake Gary. Oh man, I
Jake
cannot stand.
Arrieta. You want to talk about sample size? Jake Arrieta is a great example of that.
Zach Greinke, man, he deserved it. That 2015 Cy Young race.
Yeah, Jake Arrieta is such a fascinating case study, man, because he was asked, and then he was one of the best pitchers in baseball for what was it, like a year and a half, 2 years, and then went right
Mm,
back. It's just it goes to show you, man, baseball is such a fascinating sport.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, dude, Zach Greinke's incredible. Corey Seager, always got a special place in my heart for that dude as well. It's a shame he's not on the Dodgers anymore, and he doesn't stay healthy all the time. But when he's healthy, he's awesome to watch. And um, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying with the Cubs. Yeah, and it's just I get it why people don't like the Dodgers either. When you get when you get something shoved down your throat so much, it's like like it almost makes you want to root against them, like you said.
yeah. And if I wasn't a base or like if I was a casual and just getting into it, I would probably hate the Dodgers. I'll be honest. I'll probably be a Padres fan, just because of Dodgers are they're the team now.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show you, man. A lot of it is timing, and in the contrarian timeline, maybe in an alternate universe, you're a Padres fan, but in this universe, you're a Dodgers fan. Sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles, right? And no one can call you a bandwagon too, because
I
it's
mean, I
all
always get that, but I mean, I know
like you said, who cares? You let it go, right? Who cares?
I had to suffer through the McCourt era for as long as I had to. I mean, well, I say suffer when I wasn't really, that much of a diehard until like 2013 when ownership changed. So, but I mean, even the
You picked a
playoff
great
stuff,
time for the type to shift. How about that?
yeah, yeah, it was just great timing, especially with the Angels. I mean, they were amazing until around that time. It just
Yeah,
fell apart.
yeah, yeah. Ironically, the season you mentioned when they won the division and they lost to the Royals in the wild card, they got swept, and really since then they haven't really done anything since.
Yeah. And that wasn't no one could have really guessed that. I mean, they were supposed to be good for as long as Mike Trout was on that team.
Yeah, and Mike Trout's still there, and they've never been more ass.
Yeah, poor guy. But
Poor guy. I mean, I guess I don't feel too bad for him.
hey, if he wants it, I guess, is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
I think that's what he wants. Yeah, I think he's just enjoying life. I think that's what he wants. I think he wants to be there.
Safety and affordability of Orange County. That's what he likes.
Yeah, shit, man, it must be nice getting paid. Was it like $300 something million? Yeah, shit, it's a good life.
Yeah.
No
Good for him.
pressure, no nothing. It's just chilling out. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, it's disappointing because of the talent level and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's his life, right?
Yeah. I mean, I I would love to be in his shoes. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, fuck, you kidding me? But you know what? No better shoes to be in than our own, man. A lot of good fun things in store. Yeah, I can't wait for it all, man. And one of these days we'll have to get the D trio, D times three.
Yeah, I don't know if we could talk about baseball though. I don't know how they feel about it. But
Oh, we could talk about anything. We don't even have to talk about sports. We could talk about anything.
sounds good. I'm
We
excited.
could talk about Orange County and Los Angeles, like you were talking about earlier. That could be our next.
Oh yeah, that'll
Oh,
be the next. That'll be part 2.
there you go, the non-sports sequel, if you will.
I mean, it kind of ties into, why I'm a Dodgers fan versus an Angels fan, but there's a little more added context, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I guess everything connects, right? So it's a non-sports, but it connects to sports.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it, man. Well, anyways, I appreciate you so much, man, for taking the time out of your night to make this happen. Um, definitely can't wait for the next one. Knock on wood, very, very soon. Hopefully in the coming days and weeks, we'll get many more. They always say the hardest one's the first one, and then the second one, and after that, like in anything really. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. So, I'm happy we got to make this happen. My fault we hadn't done it up until now, but I'd say it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I had fun. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. No, thank you, man. Much love, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good.
Cheers, man.